Close your eyes for just a moment. The year is 1955, and there's fresh bread baking in the kitchen, while Foster Hewitt's voice crackles through the radio, and for one perfect moment, everything in the world feels exactly right. Want to go back? Somewhere between the smell of your mother's butter tarts cooling on the counter and the sound of skates scraping across outdoor ice, Canada had something truly special in the 1950s. Life moved slower back then, simpler in ways that are hard to explain to anyone who didn't experience it firsthand. The kind of simple where a Saturday meant playing road hockey until your fingers went numb and your mother's voice echoed down the street calling you home for supper. Where the milkman knew your family by name, and the biggest decision you'd make all day involved whether to spend your nickel on a chocolate bar at the corner store or save it for the Saturday matinee. This wasn't some romanticized fantasy or a story people made up to feel better about getting older. Millions of Canadians actually lived this life, breathed this air, felt this freedom. And if you grew up in those years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That feeling deep in your chest, that sense that the world made sense, and tomorrow would probably be even better than today. Before we dive deeper into the memories that shaped a generation, give this video a like and subscribe. We've got so much more to cover, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. Point 1. The neighborhood. Picture a typical Canadian neighborhood in the mid-1950s, the kind you'd find in any town from Victoria to St. John's. Modest bungalows and two-story homes line quiet streets where maple and elm trees cast long shadows across freshly cut lawns. A Pontiac or a Meteor sits in the driveway, chrome, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Somewhere nearby, a screen door slams as a kid bolts outside into the summer heat. No phone to check, no screen to stare at, no notifications pulling their attention in 17 directions. Just pure, unfiltered childhood waiting to happen in whatever form it took that day. Inside those homes, Moffat or McClary stoves hummed quietly in kitchens where mothers pulled bubbling tourtière or Nanaimo bars from the oven, and fathers flipped through the Eaton's catalog that sat permanently on the kitchen table, circling things the family might need next month or maybe for Christmas. A rotary phone hung on the wall, its long spiral cord stretched and twisted from years of conversations that lasted hours because there was nowhere else anyone needed to be. The party line meant you might pick up and hear Mrs. Henderson from down the street chatting away, so you'd quietly hang up and try again in 10 minutes. Nobody locked their doors when they left for work or ran to the corner store. Why would they? Everyone knew everyone on the block, knew their kids' names, knew which dog belonged to which house. Trust wasn't something you questioned or debated. It was just the foundation everything else was built on, and outside belonged entirely to the kids. Point 2. Childhood freedom. Summer mornings started the same way across the entire country, from the smallest prairie towns to the biggest cities. You'd wake up naturally, no alarm clock screaming at you, throw on whatever clothes you could find, gulp down a bowl of cornflakes or Red River cereal while the radio played in the background, and then vanish into the neighborhood until lunch. No one asked where you were going or demanded a detailed itinerary. No one needed to know because the whole neighborhood was your territory, and every adult on the street was looking out for every kid. Bikes were absolute freedom on two wheels. Not expensive mountain bikes with 20 gears and hydraulic shocks, just simple CCM two-wheelers that you rode until the chain fell off. Some had banana seats that were cool for exactly one summer. Some had playing cards clipped to the spokes with clothespins so they'd make that satisfying flapping sound that announced your arrival from 3 blocks away. You'd ride for hours, exploring streets you'd seen 100 times but somehow never got boring. Racing your friends down hills with your feet off the pedals, popping wheelies that you'd practice until you got them perfect. No helmets, no knee pads, no rules except the big one, the universal law that every Canadian kid understood without anyone having to explain it twice. Be home before the street lights came on. That rule was carved in stone across the entire country. Every kid knew it, respected it, lived by it. When those lights flickered to life and that orange glow started spreading across the pavement, you dropped everything and pedaled home as fast as your legs could pump. Didn't matter if you were winning the game or losing. Didn't matter if you were in the middle of the best adventure of your entire summer. The streetlights meant supper, and supper meant family. And family meant you showed up on time, sweaty and exhausted and completely happy. Point 3, dinner and hockey night. Inside, the kitchen smelled like home in a way that's impossible to recreate. Roast beef and potatoes with gravy made from the drippings, shepherd's pie loaded with ground beef and vegetables, pork chops with applesauce, craft dinner on nights when Mom didn't feel like cooking from scratch, and sometimes, if you were really lucky, fish and chips wrapped in newspaper from the local shop. Supper happened around the table with everyone present and accounted for. All of you squeezed into the same space. No TV blaring in the background. No phones buzzing with messages that couldn't wait 10 minutes, just forks scraping plates and ice clinking in glasses, and someone asking how your day went. And you'd actually answer with real details because there was nothing else competing for your attention or pulling your eyes away from the people right in front of you. Your parents wanted to know what you did, who you played with, if you scraped your knee jumping off the swing set, if you found that frog you'd been looking for all week. The smallest details mattered because life moved slowly enough to actually notice them and care about them. After supper, especially on Saturday nights, the real magic began across the entire country. Saturday nights in Canada meant one thing and one thing only: hockey night in Canada. Families gathered around the television, often the only one in the house, planted firmly in the living room. You'd sit on the Chesterfield or squeeze onto the floor, and when that theme song kicked in and Foster Hewitt's voice filled the room, you knew without question that you were part of something bigger than yourself. He shoots, he scores. The whole country tuned in at the same time. Millions of Canadians watching the same game, the same players, the same incredible saves, and devastating goals. You'd talk about it at school on Monday morning, replaying the highlights with your friends, and everyone saw it. Everyone remembered the same moments, shared the same excitement. The Leafs, the Canadiens, the Red Wings. These weren't just teams. They were religion. Maurice Richard, Gordie Howe, Tim Horton. These weren't just players. They were heroes. Point 4, the corner store and simple pleasures. No trip down memory lane would be complete without talking about the corner store. Every neighborhood had one, run by the same family for decades. The bell above the door would jingle when you walked in, and Mr. Kowalski or Mrs. Chen would look up from behind the counter and greet you by name. A nickel could buy you a chocolate bar, a popsicle, or a bag of penny candy. You'd stand there for what felt like hours, staring at the rows of candy behind the glass counter, trying to decide between black balls, licorice whips, or those little wax bottles filled with colored sugar water. The store smelled like newsprint and tobacco, and something sweet you could never quite identify. Comic books lined the spinning rack near the front. Superman, Archie, the Lone Ranger. You'd read them right there in the store if Mr. Kowalski was in a good mood, careful not to bend the pages. And if you saved up your allowance, maybe you could afford a bottle of Coca-Cola or an Orange Crush from the cooler. The bottles were glass, heavy, and cold in your hand. And you'd return them for the deposit because 2 cents was 2 cents. Life's pleasures were simple because they had to be. Nobody had much money, but nobody seemed to need much either. A new pair of skates for Christmas. A trip to the CNE or the Calgary Stampede in the summer. A Sunday drive in the country with the windows down and the radio playing. These weren't just things, they were events. Moments that mattered because they didn't happen every day. Point 5, winter and the outdoor rink. But if there's one thing that defined Canadian childhood in the 1950s more than anything else, it was winter. And winter meant hockey. Not organized hockey with tryouts and travel teams and parents screaming from the stands. Just hockey. Pure, simple, beautiful hockey on outdoor rinks that fathers and neighbors built together in backyards and empty lots. You'd wake up on a Saturday morning in January, the windows frosted over with ice crystals, and you'd know without looking outside that it was cold, properly cold. The kind of cold that made your nose hairs freeze and your breath hang in the air like smoke. You'd layer up. Long underwear, wool socks, 2 sweaters, a toque your grandmother knitted, a scarf wrapped around your face until only your eyes showed. Then you'd grab your stick, wooden and taped at the blade, and head to the rink. The ice would be rough, covered in snow that needed shoveling, so you'd shovel, everyone would. 10, 15 kids with shovels and scrapers working together to clear the surface because that's what you did. Nobody complained. Nobody said it wasn't their turn. You wanted to play, so you did the work. Then the game would start. Boots for goal posts. No referees, no whistles, just hockey. You'd play until your fingers went numb inside your gloves, until your toes felt like blocks of ice inside your skates, until someone's mother called them home and the game fell apart because you didn't have enough players anymore. And you'd do it all again the next day, and the day after that. Because this was Canada, and this was what Canadian kids did. Point 6. Community and connection. What made the 1950s special wasn't just the things we did or the places we went. It was the sense of community that held everything together. Your neighbors weren't just people who happened to live nearby, they were extended family. If someone on your street got sick, casseroles would appear on their doorstep without anyone organizing it. If it snowed overnight, men would help each other shovel driveways before heading to work. If a kid got hurt playing 3 streets away, they'd knock on any door and know they'd be taken care of. The milkman delivered fresh milk in glass bottles every morning, leaving them on your doorstep before sunrise. The bread man came twice a week with fresh loaves. The rag and bone man would roll through the neighborhood with his horse and cart, calling out for scrap metal and old clothes. These weren't just service providers, they were part of the fabric of daily life. You knew their names, they knew yours. They'd been delivering to your street for years, maybe decades. Church on Sunday wasn't just about religion. It was where the community gathered, where you saw everyone you knew, caught up on news, made plans for the week ahead. The church basement hosted everything from wedding receptions to bingo nights to Christmas concerts where every kid in town had a part. People looked out for each other because that's what you did, not because someone told you to or because you expected something in return. You did it because you were neighbors, and neighbors took care of each other. The feeling. Close your eyes again. Go back to 1955. The bread is baking. Foster Hewitt is calling the game. Your bike is leaning against the garage, ready for tomorrow's adventure. And for one perfect moment, life is exactly what it should be. The 1950s in Canada weren't perfect. We know that now. But there was something in the air back then, something in the way people treated each other, something in the freedom kids had to just be kids that we've lost somewhere along the way. Maybe it's the sounds, the smells, or the feelings. But some memories from the 1950s Canada never really leave you. These weren't just things. They were part of how we grew up, laughed, learned, and connected with the world around us. Which memory hit you the hardest? Or is there something we missed that still lives rent-free in your memory? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. And if this trip back in time made you smile, leave a like and subscribe to help more people rediscover the magic. Because sometimes the past isn't gone, it's just waiting for us to remember. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.